Hello, welcome back to another SwansCast match preview, and I'm joined once again for the first repeat match, if you like, of the season. Obviously, the first leg has already been and gone. We're now into the second half, and Ollie has come back to join us ahead of Swansea versus Preston at the weekend. From the Butter Pie podcast, you might remember we had the story about the name earlier in the season, so welcome, Ollie.
Thank you, Luke. Thanks for having me on again.
Now, brilliant. Thanks for coming back. Yeah, so obviously halfway through the season, so I guess it's I've changed the questions up a little bit just to make them a bit more relevant. But before we get into them, can you just remind everyone where they can find you, your content as well?
Yeah, so myself, I'm obviously on Twitter at Ollie Hargreaves with two S's on the end. And then obviously for the Butter Pie podcast, it's at the Butter Pie podcast on Twitter. And then obviously on all retrospective streaming sites, Spotify and Apple Music. Give us a follow on Twitter and keep up to date with obviously all of our stuff.
Go check out Butter Pie Podcast and Ollie as well on Twitter then. So going into this one, Swansea obviously home against Preston on Friday, isn't it? It's Friday the 22nd of December. It's always weird this time of year depending on the Christmas schedule, what days you're going to be playing. And this year's Friday, Christmas Eve's obviously Sunday, and I'm sure the next match then is Boxing Day. But for Swansea, we obviously currently don't have a manager. It's going to be Alan Sheehan's fourth game in charge as of now. Obviously, we're recording this on Wednesday. So as of now, we haven't got a manager, and he is set to take charge of that game. It will be his fourth game. A bit of a tricky time down here in terms of we don't really know where we're going direction until we get that that's sorted in terms of the managerial decision, and it's not going as well as we hoped, I guess. I'm not sure how aware you are, Ollie, of it, but we wanted Chris Davis from Spurs, by all accounts, and he said no, he didn't want us.
That surprises me in some sort of way. I mean, well, I was reading about how it was close and everything. Was it more matter of the fact that he's come down and had talks and it's just broken off there, or is it more so the fact that he's just gone no straight away?
I haven't got the detail around the reasoning behind what's actually gone on. I'm sure it will come out. Maybe it's there, but I've been a bit. It's Christmas, isn't it? I've been tied up in work quite a lot this week. But from what I gather, obviously strong links. He worked for Brendan Rodgers with us when we got promoted the first time to Premier League back in 2010-11 period. Obviously gone on to do other stuff with Brendan, and now he's at Spurs as a coach. We wanted him in the summer, and I believe we chose to go for Michael Duff instead. And I think at the time he was not at Spurs. We would have been a free agent, if you like, free transfer. Got back in for him. It did sound like he was quite interested. So whether it's true or not, I'm not sure. But there was stories that he might have been in the stadium for the last game. And the evening after the last game is when it came out that he was not definitely going to take the job. His odds got really short at one point, and they were reporting on quite reputable sites that it looked like he was set to come in. And obviously something must have happened. So whether the talks just didn't go as planned, maybe the compensation with Spurs, that definitely could be a stumbling block. I think that's Spurs are a club that tend to have a history of that being an issue.
Yeah, Daniel Levy likes to bump up the prices.
And I know we wouldn't want to pay a lot, especially after having to pay compensation for Duff. Expensive mistake, really. Or whether it was a case of maybe there was discussions around what he needs in terms of to meet the expectations with transfers and what money's available, and maybe he thought with what he was told that he wasn't happy with what he would. I don't know. I'm speculating. It could be anything, couldn't it?
Good.
But we won't talk about the managerial situation, not what we're here for. We'll go on to Preston, and your season so far, on the face of it, you're doing far better than Swansea. So Swansea find themselves in 18th currently, and Preston find themselves 10 places higher in 8th. You're on 32 points, whereas we are on 25. I know you've been hovering there or thereabouts the playoffs for a lot of the season. Maybe recent weeks have slipped just outside. It was quite a tight playoff fight, I thought, for a lot of the season, but the last couple of weeks it's getting less tight, I think, up that end, right at the moment anyway. And your last game, you lost 5-1 to Watford. So I just want to ask, really, how's your season been so far, and then your recent form as well?
I'll put it into perspective in this type for you, Luke. So I might go off on a bit of a tangent here, but it's quite relevant. So, if any of the listeners know Blackpool Pleasure Beach, and they know the big one. So,
Oh
we
yeah,
started the season. We've
used to be
gone up
called the
that.
Pepsi Max.
You did.
Yeah.
It used to go all the way up to the top, straight up to the top, and we were fighting. We were playing fantastic football, and then we've hit the peak of our time, and I'm not sure what's gone wrong, and we've just plummeted straight down, like no tomorrow. Yeah, league standing looks fine. We're eighth. We've been there. That's possibly, well, it is only due to our fantastic start to the season. But in recent times, we fell away like no tomorrow. We've had 3 wins in the last 15 games. If that's anything to go off, which is absolutely...
It sounds like a Russell Martin run from last season that we were in.
It's absolutely honking, and it's at the moment, a lot of fans aren't on Lowe's side. Realistically, I'd say a high percentage want him sacked. He's come out to the presser today, and obviously the fans have come out and said what to forth about him. There's not really an identity, and he's come back to the fans and said, what have they ever done in football, and they don't really, why should I take on board anything that if they've not been in football, why should I give them a time of day? Which is, a bit of a punch in the teeth for
It's
fans.
what I would say to that is it's very kind of similar to the Michael Duff made a rod for his own back with some of the things he was saying in the media around fan opinion and like for example, he really played down our derby against Cardiff and brushed off all the fans' thoughts and why it's important to them. It sounds very similar, and when you see those sort of things, quite often doesn't end well.
No, it's definitely a time where he's under pressure at the most, and he's kind of trying to get the right things to say. But once you're under pressure as a person, you say the wrong things, and it's all going to be a big downfall. So, this could be a deciding factor come Friday night, dependent on what the result comes.
So do you think this could, if you lose this game, you think you might be looking for a change over Christmas?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, we've got Leeds at home on Boxing Day, and they're flying at the moment. So realistically, I think we've got Sunderland. We've got Wednesday, I think, on the 29th, and then we've got Sunderland away, I think, New Year's Day. So we've got 4 very tricky fixtures. I think.
Yeah.
I think we do have Leeds, and then Wednesday at home on the 26th and 29th, and then obviously we're going away to Sunderland. But you look at these 4 games, and they're so tightly knitted. If say you get some results out of them, you're still up there and around the playoffs. But you lose them more. I mean, as I mentioned before, 3 wins out of 15 is relegation form. So yeah, I think you can't go on and get chirpy and give some back to the fans and try to defend yourself and then not back up the claims, which he hasn't been doing recently. So for me, it should be a deciding factor whether or not the club think so because of the finances. Because he's brought in it's like, as you mentioned now, like with trying to get Chris Davis in. You've obviously an expensive mistake bringing Michael Duff. It's the same with Ryan Lowe. He's brought in the entirety of his staff. So Mike Marsh, who was obviously Swansea, and then he's brought in his own recruitment team and everything. So realistically, you're looking to lay off about 7 or 8 different people with compensation. Now, do North End have the finances to do that whilst we're trying to get ready for the January window? I'm not too sure. I mean, we've got a big game against Chelsea, so who knows? He may be getting given more time, but I've gone off on a right tangent. But realistically, our season's just plummeting at the moment, and we're just awaiting a little bit of an uprise.
Quite interesting to hear, and I think like for the Swansea fans listening, maybe that's what they want to hear. That if you look at the league table, they might be thinking, "Oh, 8th place Preston is going to be a hard game." But having heard some of the stuff you're saying, maybe gives them a bit more belief that Swansea can get something out of the game, especially at home, because we do need a home result really desperately. And we didn't play bad against Middlesbrough. We probably were the better team and should have won that game. So it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, we'll talk a little bit more about the style and stuff in a sec. I'm just intrigued really by what's going on with yourselves. Looking at the form in the last 5 games, we actually have slightly better form by 1 point. So yeah, we've got one win, 2 draws and 2 losses, and you've got 3 losses, 1 win and 1 draw. And it's 1 win in 6 for yourselves, isn't it, as well? I think same as us, but same as us. But yeah, that's it's very interesting for 4 losses in 6. I wasn't necessarily expecting it early in the season, but I have seen some things recently, and I can't for the life of me find the link back to this table that I saw the other day, but the XG chart. And have you seen that?
Yeah,
I was going to ask about who we were talking about on the podcast the other day, and Preston were one of the 2 teams that were massively overperforming in terms of league position.
Yeah, and to be fair, I say that, and I'm speaking about the XG, but in the last couple of games, including against Watford, I think Watford we had an XG of 2.93 or something around about that, and then obviously Huddersfield we were quite high on that end, but it's an accumulation of obviously all the games that we've been poorly at. And I think we're not a very attacking side. Low mentions about this attacking brand. It's not. It's more of a conservative brand. You play. He says we play 3-5-2. We probably play 5 at the back with 2 holding midfielders. So, that 3-5-2 is not really happening. It's more of a 7-2 and a 1.
Yeah.
So realistically, you're struggling for creativity within the team. I have to give, I have to say though, in the past 2 games, we have tried to play more of attacking brand, against Huddersfield, but we're going to be honest, Huddersfield were very, very poor when we played against them. So,
yeah.
I mean, if you couldn't pick up points in the game against that, I'd have been, that's that, because they were significantly poor, and then you come up against a good side in Watford. First half, we were okay, and then obviously second half we conceded after about 16 seconds for them to go to 2-1.
It's crazy to see that.
I think you might have seen did you see the clip of it?
I might have seen something. There's a lot of clips from the weekend.
Yeah, so the ball's got played back to Woodman. Woodman's smashed it up down the right, and obviously we've overloaded about 8 players over there. We haven't won the first flick on. Their second man wins the ball, plays diagonal straight through to.
And I haven't seen that.
Martin, and he's 1-on-1 against Lindsay, beats him and puts it in the back of the net, and it was just a downhill slope from there. So what I would say is North End aren't very good once we go a goal down, and I think with the manager under pressure, if we go a goal down, we don't really have a plan B. So the first goal is vital within the game.
Need to get an early goal then to get a good chance of.
Well, I hope not.
Getting a good result for us.
If you score early on, I think. If Swansea do end up winning, there'll be an entire meltdown over the PNAFC Twitter space. So it's just one of those. I think Lowe's tenure's probably run its course.
Yeah.
So, it is what it is. But, we need to be there and about. And, coming to Swansea, albeit without a manager, it's a tough place to come. And I'm really not expecting anything out of the game.
No, I completely get where you're coming from, because we just drew with Huddersfield in what was Michael Duff's last game, and there was a bit of a meltdown, about that, because it's one of them where you need to be winning them games at home with Huddersfield where they are. If we're near the bottom end of the table, so it's more dangerous for us to not win that. And so I completely understand where you're coming from there. Looking at the stats from the Watford game, it's crazy to think you lost the game 5-1 when you've had 20 shots and 10 on target against a team who had 15 with 7 on target. Yeah. Bit nuts.
Yeah, it was a bit of a bonkers game, but we lost control. And the first half, we were fantastic, and I thought, we're in good spirits, but then we've conceded where we probably shouldn't have, and then you come out for the second half and you concede again after 16 seconds, kind of knocks the wind out of you, and then after that we're under the cosh and we were just so poor. So realistically, them stats are from the first half, which is as mental as it may look, and I think Ben Hamer had the game of his life in the first half. So
game of ex-Swansea keepers, that is.
yeah,
Woodman, Hamer, Connell on the bench.
Well, yeah. To be fair, Woodman's come under a bit. Well, I think he deserves to come under a bit of scrutiny recently because I think 3 of their goals were from outside the box, and then obviously I remember against Middlesbrough, I think where we lost. I think it was 4-0, and when we're not doing well, you need your keeper to be there.
Yeah.
And he's not really been there as of this season. The past few seasons, superb, and I was like, we've got a top-class championship keeper. But this season, it's been a bit...
I think you might have just gone on mute there.
Yeah, sorry.
That's all right.
You've had these type of performances where you need your players to step.
Yeah.
Hasn't.
Yeah, exactly. I think we had a little bit of that when he was down here, but you did well on the whole. But there was a few games where you did get a bit of criticism for. But I completely agree again with Rushworth for us has probably saved us quite a lot of points, and maybe you could even be looking at worse for us in the table if it wasn't for some of his interventions. So having a good keeper behind you, you need that. Especially when all else is not going well, it's kind of that extra saving grace. You kind of talked about the formation a little bit already, so expecting to see a 3-5-2 or
7-2-1.
7-2-1. Whatever way we want to call it, depending on who speaks, maybe. But yeah, so I would imagine that's how you line up for this one. Is there any key personnel expect to be included?
I'd expect Liam Miller to play. I think he's been our only saving grace. A Canadian on loan from Basel. He's very good in one-on-ones, and he's very direct. We do have him playing left wing back, so he's not. To be fair, he's probably not the most defensively sound wing back you've ever seen in your life, but he's superb going forward. I'd like to see this player called Madfrothy Jensen play. But Lowe seems to, not want to put our creative players on the pitch at the moment. I'm not sure if that's due to, needing to grind out results.
Yeah.
Because he's not very good against the ball. But if he does play, if Miller will definitely play, so he's definitely the one to look out for. If Frockyard does get on the pitch, then obviously he's another one to look out for in terms of, ones who are going to make the greatest impact on the game. Trying to get the ball up to either Osmajic up top or Keane or both, depending, if Lowe has a nosebleed like last weekend and plays 2 strikers up top. So, yeah, we'll just have to see how it pans out. But I'd say keep an eye open for Liam Miller, who's very good at one-on-ones, and then you look into the centre of the park and, with 2 holding midfielders of Whiteman and Brown, they'll be the big game players that you have to, look towards in getting past. And, if you beat our midfield battle, there's only one way to go.
Well, hopefully Matt Grimes can have one of his better games of recent. We need to get the best out of him. Haven't necessarily seen it all the time this season, but hopefully under the new direction of the club, whoever takes charge will get more out of him. And I think he's obviously one of our assets in the middle. So winning midfield is key to doing that, really. But I will ask you. I know I just mentioned one myself, but who from the Swansea team do you look at and think maybe can cause you some damage?
I think I remember saying this last time, Luke.
Probably the same. Nothing's changed, is this? It's a bit of a silly question. Unless you've seen any players.
Ex-Blackpool player
to
sack Lowe, Jerry Yates, he'll probably score a brace.
Okay. He didn't start the last game, so that's.
Well, he's bound to start against us, but yeah,
No, he might do. I think he's been in and out, like one in, one
Yeah.
out.
Well, I would have, because I'm thinking back, because Josh Nilly's obviously got really badly injured,
Yeah.
and he's been quite injury prone at yours, and I was expecting him to.
He's out for the season, yeah.
Yeah, so he's a big player when he comes back for yourselves. But for me, I just can't get Jerry Yates out of my head. I don't know why. Even though he's been in and out of your team, it's just that horrible feeling in the back of my mind.
Puts the nail in your manager's coffin, ex-Blackpool. It could be Charlie Patino as well, ex-Blackpool.
Probably. It was 3-0. Jerry Yates brace, and Charlie Patino probably takes a penalty and Panenka's it or something. He'll just put the icing on the cake for me. Like.
We would love to see that, I think, but we'll see. Neither of them started the last game, actually, so it'd be interesting to see if they come back into the lineup here. Maybe because of that connection, maybe they will, and maybe they'll put on a show for us. But
I hope.
But yeah,
yeah.
I mean, we need a home result. I won't lie to you. I don't want to wish ill on Preston, but Swansea need to get a win at home quite desperately, and one before Christmas would definitely go down well down here. So we hope we can get one over the line. But what do you think the result will be?
I'll say 2-1 Swansea.
2-1 Swansea.
I'm going to be straight. Normally, I'm nice and optimistic about North End, but at the moment, really not. I'm going to say 2-1 Swans.
I'm going to hope that your prediction does come true. But yeah, we'll leave it there for the football. And I got one last question. So the beginning half of the season, I was asking everyone what their favourite drink of choice would be at a football ground. So now I'm going to kind of mix it up and say, what's the best footy scran that you've ever had when you've been to a stadium?
Ooh, I was anticipating a favourite Christmas drink, so I already had one in mind. And favourite.
You can tell us that as well if you want. What you can answer that.
There was one at Hull. I think a season or so ago. I can't. It was just this it was this concoction. I think it was like a kebab or what's the fourth? But it's so out of the meaning of not having a really, been in the microwave for 2 hours pie, and it was just bog standard food, and it was just really nice. And to be fair, North End have changed it as well. There's a chicken tikka Balti or something with rice, and to be fair, it's top notch actually on the concourse. So I've not really gone out of my depth there, but I'd probably say both of them.
And what's the Christmas drink, out of curiosity?
Baileys. More of a dessert than a drink, Luke.
Yeah.
But you can't go wrong with
Nah,
Baileys.
I got several of them in the cupboards ready to be cracked open, different flavours and all.
Got on them Tesco Club card.
Yeah,
nice and
special
prepared.
offer, £10.
Exactly.
But yeah, so thank you very much for joining me again, Ollie. I know you've got some other stuff to record now, so I'm going to let you shoot. Just remind everyone where they can find you and your content.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. So on Twitter at the Butterpie Pod, and obviously all our retrospective streaming sites, so Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you can hear our lovely voices.
There we are. Good luck to Preston for the rest of the season. I hope that if it's not low, whatever happens, we manage to turn it around after Friday.
No, that's great, and I'm sure we'll speak to you next season, Luke, whilst we enjoy our.
Well, I hope so.
12th place.
So. Well, I mean, we're hovering down in low areas as well. Hopefully, we can maintain our position here too. But yeah, catch you next season. Have a good one.
You too. Take care, Luke. Cheers, having me on.